Hey guys, I just wanted to do a quick video today about something that has come up in comments, with a couple comments on my last video about the headache that this is going to be. And yes, it's going to be a headache, but I thought I'd share with you a couple tricks that I've learned over the years about lots of parts like this British car lot parts, to make the headache a little less. Let's say it's just a headache instead of a migraine. So the first tip I have is get everything out of the box. Put your hands on everything. In other words, whoever put this lot together, or whatever lot you have, and this applies to any lot of parts, an assortment of nuts and bolts, anything. They had their own way of doing it. Maybe they just threw it all together. Maybe they threw it together with some intention. But that's not the way you're thinking about it. You don't know what intention they had, if they had any. So take your boxes, whatever that may be, and get your hands on the parts. Take them out of the boxes. Wipe off the mouse debris and the leaves and whatever else is in there. Throw away anything that's obviously totally junk. Get that out of the way. Rubber hoses and belts, V-belts, that sort of thing. Just throw them away. That way they're not in your way, in your line of sight, distracting you. Now if you look at this box here, it just looks like a jumble of parts. I guarantee you there's probably $100 worth of good parts in here, but unless I actually physically go through it and put my hand on each little piece of metal, I'm never going to know that. And then what I do is I set up bins. Now obviously you see I've just started, but I've got 3 bins here, and I am going to have a 4th bin when I clear it out. I used one already. I got my first bin. I know what every one of these items in the first bin are, and they need minimal cleanup to list. This is the first bin I'm going to mess with probably when I start listing stuff, because this bin, I basically know everything that's going to go in here, what it is. I might even have an idea of what car it goes on to. Now remember, in this case I have several different cars and a couple different models, all British but several different models. So I'm going to have to identify what model these things came out of. But if I put all my parts that I know are ready to go in one bin, it's less of a headache, because I can pull them out one at a time. I know they're ready to go, and I can list them and get them sold and out of the way. And then I can move on to the more complicated stuff. This bin here is going to be stuff that I may or may not know what it is, but it is going to take some work to clean up. This bin is probably 50% going to get scrapped, because this is where stuff's going to go that's really rusty. I have no idea what it is. It may be a small bracket. I may identify it, clean it up, sell it, but it also may be like these brake cylinders down here. Now, they actually look like they may be NOS brake cylinders, but I'll need to clean them up and see if they're worth saving. We have some brake shoes. Now, these brake shoes are not usable as is. Even if I cleaned them up, they would not be usable as is. I know that. I don't care. But I don't know if people still reshoe these. So I'm going to hang on to them. I'm going to put them in here. This is probably going to be the last bin I go through after all the other stuff. The next bin is going to be assorted lots of stuff that have already been bagged. They may be in a bag. They may be in a box, a partial box. They may or may not be NOS. They may be used, but again, not going to go through them right now. They're already put together for some purpose. I'll go through them later. Let's not, get bogged down in the details at this point. Is kind of my point. The next major bin is going to be a box in this case, because I want something a little bit smaller. And in here is going to go chrome stuff, fragile stuff, tail lights, that kind of thing. And there may be a couple of these bins. This is for things I don't want to put in these huge bins where they're going to get piled on, or stuff is going to get piled on top of one another. You want to kind of size your bins for the parts, if you will. You don't want a whole bin this size, which is like 3 feet long, of taillight lenses, because what's going to happen is they're going to get in there, they're going to be scraped around as you're trying to go through them, and they're going to get cracked, they're going to get scratched, and you don't want that. So you get a smaller bin, you put all your fragiler stuff in there. You see I've already started it with some small chrome pieces, or a small chrome piece and a windshield wiper. Things that go in there are things like this. These sun visors. You don't want them rolling around in your other bins. Now what you will notice here is I am not trying to identify parts at this point. It's worthless trying to go through this guy's idea of organization and trying to identify parts. Get them separated however you want to do it. It's fine. I'm not trying to tell you there's only one way to do this, but get them separated so that in your mind narrow stuff down a little bit more. Of course, we're always going to have special case stuff. This apparently was a set of NOS pistons, or several NOS pistons, not a set necessarily. However, you see by storage, they have had a hard time. They are going to need cleaned up. But I'm going to want to take some time and clean these up before I clean up all that rusty junk, because these are going to probably make more money. I'll probably, like this one, I'll just get the rings out of it, clean up the lands, see what we got, see if it's worth saving. This one may not be. It's a little bit corroded. This is why you don't put your rings in your pistons before you're going to use them, because if you don't oil them, then they're going to corrode like this. And you see what's the pin down in there, and you see the rat poop down in there. So these are, I call them special case items. They're going to need to be cleaned up, but they potentially have the potential to be a good seller because they are a NOS part, a new old stock part. And that basically goes for these sorts of things too, where this is some sort of suspension set that's been mouse-eaten. We've got these clutch plates that I still haven't decided whether some of them are actually new. As I go, these bins are going to get smaller basically. As I picture stuff and list stuff, they're going to go in another bin. That bin will be stuff that's already listed, so I don't have to, like, you know, go through all these bins trying to find a part that I've listed. I will know that the parts in that bin have already been listed. Ancillary to that, I may or may not start dividing them up into which car they went with. Now, in this particular lot, I'm kind of going back and forth whether I would actually do that or not, because as much as there's not that much where I'm going to have a stock of 1,000 parts for Austins, 1,000 parts for MGs, 1,000 parts for Triumphs. I'm going to have basically a couple hundred of each. So it's not as big a deal to divide them up into their specific make. Now, if I got another lot of this, or I was going to go into business only doing these things, I would do that. I do that with motorcycles. If you go in my shed, it's a mess, but it's a mess that I understand. I have parts for Triumph Tridents, Triumph Bonnevilles, Triumph Tigers. I have Honda CB in the different sizes, 350, 450, 550. That just makes sense for those. In this case, because this is all I have, and it's a lot, but it's all I have, I probably won't do that. So, after you've emptied a box, go through the box again. Lift up the flaps, look underneath, because you might find something like this. Now, this doesn't look like much, but you might not make this part anymore, or this part may be hard to find just because it's an odd little part. Have no idea what it's for, but it's going to go in my stuff to be sorted and cleaned, and it may eventually get tossed or scrapped, it may not. Envelope appears to be empty, nothing in it, but I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to look inside of it. Why? Sticker score. So I didn't mention this before, but I do have another category, and that's keep. And basically that's things like bearings that are potentially still usable to me for different projects. Not something I would use on a vehicle or something. These are NOS Timken bearings. They're still in the plastic, but they're honestly a little rough. They haven't survived the time well. Wrenches, snap-on. Snap-on sockets. A right socket, 1 7/8, 3/4 drive. Battery cables. These kinds of tools make great, once they're cleaned up, make great additions to like a toolbox in a car, or you know, whatever. Wait, Snap-on Whitworth. Snap-on Whitworth. Interesting. 1/8 inch Whitworth, 3/16 Whitworth, 1/4 inch Whitworth. How's that for a score? Snap-on Whitworth wrenches. Do they even make these anymore? I hope this helps somebody, you know, about sorting. Yes, it is. It's even to me, it's sort of anxiety-inducing, you know, looking at these lots of parts. But I guarantee you, once you get them out of this state, where they're just a jumble of dirty mouse droppings and parts, and you start putting your hands on them, going through them one by one. Don't worry about too much about what it is, where it came from, what model it is. Put it in its separate bin to be either listed, cleaned, sorted. And that's basically it. Oh, well, and then you've got the nice stuff, the fragile stuff. Anyway, I hope that helps to somebody. There's 1,000 ways to do this. This is just how I do it. I'm not trying to tell you how to do it. I'm just saying this is how I do it. It makes sense in my mind, and it helps me to take some of the anxiety and the headache out of it. It's still going to be a headache, but like I said, it's a headache, not a migraine. If you watched the other video, you would have remembered that I said that this block supposedly had a crack in it, but I didn't find the crack. Well, I didn't look at the right side, apparently. I only looked at the good side. That is a catastrophic failure. Looks like rod broke, spun a bearing, broke, and took out a good chunk of casting. Oh well. Still some good parts on here, I'm sure.